crank up the octave.
Go for it.
I have finally gotten away from berries and cream TikTok and have.
You only think you have.
Well, I've transitioned to Wackus Bonkus TikTok. Have you seen those ones?
Yes.
You naughty Wackus Bonkus. Berries and cream still has its clutches in me. It's there. I'll never escape berries and cream TikTok as long as I live. And I believe that to be 100% true.
I love the fact that the guy who played the little lad is both like a professor at a university and like this professional ballet dancer, and he gets fucking livid when anyone brings up the little lad.
Well, this must be a really troubling time for him in this year, 2021. Must be.
Spooky scary.
Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me today, and I'm glad you did because I've got something pretty great for you, and that is, as you know, it's Spooky Month, and we've been playing a lot of games that are in the spooky brand, but this, like, slate of Thursdays has been, like, variety stuff that I've been doing for Spooky Month, and this is week 2 of Spooky Month. And I've brought a friend that you have seen before back to the channel. My friend Zach Walls. Hello, Zach.
Hello, Sam. Thank you for bringing me back again.
Yeah, of course. So it seems like it is now a tradition that I have you on at least during Spooky Month to talk about something, because the 2 videos I've had you on before, it's kind of been like a conversation about something that people consider, spooky, that you have kind of helped to demystify a little bit. And you're very well versed in a wide variety of those types of subjects.
I do believe last time you coined the phrase that I was the ambassador of Spoop for your channel.
Yes, the ambassador of Spoop, Mr. Zach Walls, which I greatly appreciate. And so
I've been meaning to ask: as ambassador of Spoop, do I get any kind of like special diplomatic immunity? What all entails with that?
So you get a free pass whenever a movie monster tries to come and murder you.
Oh, fantastic.
So if like you're asleep and Freddy comes in, he's just like, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. You'd be like, nope, I'm the ambassador of Spoop. I have immunity. And he'll be like, shucks. And he'll fucking beat feet and get the fuck out. So
and how often does that pass replenish?
As long as you continue to return at least once a year during Spooky Month, you can have it in perpetuity.
Fantastic! Even better. I may need many.
So again, this is another Spooky Month, and Zach is back to talk about another one of his wheelhouse subjects. And it was coming time to kind of plan out what I was going to do for Spooky Month, and I was just like, okay, let me re-engage my friend Zach about this whole YouTube thing. And I was just like, do you have any ideas about what you might want to talk about? And Zach was like, well, I have something. You let me know what you think about it. And I was just like, fuck it, let's do it. And so the topic today is we are talking about Luciferianism. And I want to talk to you about this, but the first thing that I want to ask, which I think is probably on the mind of everybody who is like, what's that? What is the difference between Luciferianism and Satanism? Because I'm pretty sure they're different things.
They are different things, and the degree to which they are different depends entirely on who you ask. So if we look back at, like, for example, Satanism, and we look at the Church of Satan that was founded by Anton LaVey, and you look at the Satanic Temple, which has become far more popular these days, they are not
really strong Twitter game.
Oh yes, absolutely, and we love them for it.
Mm-hmm.
But they are Satanist groups. They are not Luciferian. Now, within both Satanism and Luciferianism, it should be noted that there are, broadly speaking, 2 subgroups within each. And that's going to be your atheistic Satanists and Luciferians and your theistic Satanists and Luciferians. The Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple are both atheistic Satanist groups. So when you talk about Satanism in a broader sense, most of the time, like the overwhelming majority of people who call themselves Satanists are atheistic Satanists. They do not believe in a literal Satan. They do not believe in a god. They don't believe in any deity or spirit or anything supernatural, and they view Satan as a symbol or a metaphor. With the Luciferians, there is a bit more tendency to be theistically minded. So more Luciferians will tend to think of Satan or Lucifer as an actual being. Now, that's not to say that Luciferians worship Satan. Far from it. Luciferians see Lucifer as someone to look up to, someone to aspire to be like, because the end goal is basically apotheosis, to become your own god.
And so, because like historically, and you know, I'm this way too, because Lucifer and Satan, you know, they have depictions of there's literally a show called Lucifer on, like, you know, that exists. They kind of depict Lucifer and Satan as the same thing. And that's like they're the same entity, and that's been my understanding of it for as long as I've been aware of what they are. And is that accurate, or?
That really kind of boils down to an issue of semantics and mistaken identity. So the word Satan itself was never really originally meant as a name. It was kind of like a descriptor or a title that usually meant things like opposer or accuser. So in very early like Hebrew texts, there would be references to multiple Satans opposing people, and almost in a way in the earlier texts helping God judge people by basically acting as kind of like an attorney in a courtroom, presenting a case to God about.
Just like just imagining Lucifer like Phoenix Wright, like, hold it. I'm sorry.
Objection!
That image just popped in my head. Like the god is like the judge with the beard.
But yeah, Satan has always been more of a title and not a name, and the meaning of that has evolved over time. Whereas Lucifer originally is the name of a Roman deity, who was a deity of light and was known as the morning star. And at some point along the way, there was a mix-up with, I forget the exact verse in the Bible that got translated a weird way, where when it got translated into the Latin Vulgate, they replaced the word that they were trying to use with the closest approximation in the Roman pantheon, which ended up being Lucifer. And from there on, Lucifer became associated with Satan and the devil, which, even though we can look back on it now and Luciferians recognize that, you know, this is where that name came from, it's just been around in our culture for so long that there's no point trying to change it now. This is what people know. This is what we're used to. And I mean, he still answers to that anyway. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Don't fix it. Yeah. A name is but a name. And so the general understanding that I have of Lucifer is from like the Christian depiction, and my understanding of it is like he was an archangel that was cast from heaven, and then the snake in the garden and all that fancy fun stuff. And that's kind of my understanding of it from, you know, being raised in a Christian household and that kind of thing.
That is more so the Christians' viewpoint. Luciferians and Satanists more often than not, do not ascribe to Christian theology and cosmology as to the origin of Satan or the adversary.
Shocking. I can't believe that. So what is, since we're talking mostly about Luciferianism, what is that ascription? Like how like what is the history of Lucifer to them? And then kind of where did it start? Like what's a history of it?
So within Luciferianism, Lucifer is known by many names and many faces in cultures around the world, which are sometimes referred to as the masks of Lucifer, that he presents himself to people in different regions of the world as, to be more familiar to them. So to us, he appears as Lucifer or Satan. We're familiar with that. To people in other countries, he will appear as someone equally familiar in their myths and legends and so on and so forth. As far as the actual origin, that itself is varied depending on who you ask. Because, unlike an established Orthodox religion with, certain books and codified dogma that lays out, here's what happened, when happened, who begat who, with Satanism and Luciferianism or any occult path, that there is no core theology and set of books that dictate what happened. It's very much stuff that was kept hidden for centuries for fear of persecution. And so there were often like oral traditions and, occasional grimoires that hidden secrets would be written down in, but many have been lost over time, and some simply stuck to just oral tradition. One person just learns from another and it keeps it secret. So that origin story depends entirely on who you ask. But the most that everyone will agree on within the Luciferian current is just that Lucifer is just the mask that we see in our culture for a greater being that is more appropriately known as the adversary. And any being that assumes a Satan or Lucifer-like role in any other legend or myth or religion is just one part of that current of the adversary that reappears time and time again in cultures around the world.
So, and you say the adversary. Would it be fair to say that like it's like a kind of like counterculture in a way, like it's pushing back on like what society, like the traditions of society, or like how would you kind of like turn that into like a modern representation of what it is?
Yes, so we call it the adversary because what he is standing in opposition to is what is known as the right-hand path religions, monotheistic religions, any Orthodox religion with that codified dogma that says, this is how you must live your life, and here are the punishments if you don't, etc., etc., etc. The adversary says, no, fuck that. You're your own boss. You don't need a god who wants you to bend over backwards and do, this, that, and the other to the nth degree, and maybe you'll get rewarded, but most likely he'll punish you for eternity. Lucifer's just like, look, you're on the same footing as the gods. You don't have to fear them. Become your own god. Be your own boss. Live the life you want to. And don't be cowering in fear with some veiled threats from a distant god who doesn't care.
No, that's fair enough. I think so. So you've got Satanism, you've got Luciferianism, and did they kind of develop as things independently of each other, or did one branch off from the other? Like, where did Luciferianism start compared to Satanism?
One could argue, depending on how nitpicky you want to get, that technically speaking,
sorry.
Well, if we do want to be very, then Luciferianism came later.
Okay.
But in theory, it's just as old. But in actual practice of people referring to themselves as Luciferians and it becoming like an actual recognized phenomenon within the occult that had its own name and own philosophies and ideas, that developed later than the Satanism of Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan.
So how did you discover Luciferianism? Like what was your kind of path to that? And kind of understanding it, and I'm assuming it's something that you practice or live by, given that you know so much about it. I would assume.
Yes, I do consider myself a practicing Luciferian, and the way I came about it and the way I found it was basically, it's just one of those things where if you're someone like me who dabbles in everything occult related, you end up just finding yourself going down rabbit holes that lead into one another, and you'll read one book which makes offhanded references to this other thing, so then you go get a few more books to start reading up on it, and then
it's like TV tropes but for the occult.
exactly because a while back, I had looked into Satanism and even theistic Satanism because I was more interested in the theistic aspect than the atheistic aspect. Because to be perfectly honest, atheistic Satanism, specifically with Anton LaVey's Church of Satan, they've kind of become a grumpy old man who's like a bit of an elitist and gets angry at other people coming into the scene. Because the Church of Satan, they fucking hate the Satanic Temple. It's kind of hilarious, but they're just they've become this curmudgeon-y old man who thinks they're the gatekeeper of who's a real Satanist, and that's a whole other thing. But
yeah, that could probably be a whole other episode.
But yeah, I was more interested in I had read up so much on what people had perceived as historical or traditional Satanism, as reported by people, and how people over time, I wanted to look into was there something more to these stories of alleged devil worshippers and Satan worshippers, or were these all just bullshit stories made up to persecute people? Was there actually some hidden practice that dealt with Lucifer and Satan in a proper theistic tradition? And ended up stumbling across Luciferianism, which is kind of the modern equivalent to what the hidden occult networks at the time would have been. Now, that's not to give credit to any historical stories of Satanists killing people and animal sacrifice and all that. Anytime you hear that, that can almost 100% be chalked up to depend if it's a medieval source or older or things like that, is 100% a tortured confession or made up by the church and has no basis in fact. But if it's a more
plus
modern...
they were doing all kinds of weird fucked up shit during the medieval times anyway, so
oh yeah, absolutely. But even in more modern anecdotes where you'll hear people the Satan worshippers go down to these abandoned buildings in this park and they sacrifice animals and people, and it's that can almost be directly traced to the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s in America, which was also based in bullshit.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And there are every now and then the random psychopath, the Night Stalker, who will say that they're a Satanist and they did it for. It's no, they're a nut job and an edgelord who had no idea what the hell they were doing and just decided to say, oh, they're a Satanist to make themselves sound cool. And it's not impressing anyone, and it's making life harder for us. Yeah,
because that's the image that people are trying to kind of push past with it, because that's when suburban mom and dad hear the term Satanist, they think about oh, they're killing animals in the woods to sacrifice to Satan and the devil and blah blah blah.
Oh yeah,
that's kind of the image that they're trying to you're trying to push through to become more widely accepted.
Oh yeah, the church has done a great job with that, and popular media has done nothing to dispel that image from people's minds.
Yeah. They're very easy. It's very easy to, like, I mean, you know, we see it in the news all the time. It's very easy to latch onto an enemy and push it as a reason why shit's going bad. And I think, you know, Satan, Lucifer, good as any. Why not? Like, that seems like it's like an easy button for people. So
it's like the easiest way to disprove it is like if these people like just picked up literally any satanic or Luciferian book and just read like 5 pages. You could see it was fine, but no, they won't touch the books because they're evil and they'll get cursed if they read them and all this other stuff.
The devil's in there. The devil's in it.
It's like, just read the fucking book and see.
Yeah. So you brought up like the Night Stalker and all these other things, and people who kind of take the name of it and twist it into something that it isn't. So when we look at Luciferianism, what principles so first things first, would you call Luciferianism a religion, or would you say, like, what would you call it as like a broader thing?
I would not go so far as to call it a religion, and neither would Michael Ford, who's an occultist who's recognized for kind of bringing Luciferianism into like its modern incarnation. In fact, he literally wrote like the book on it. The Bible of the Adversary by Michael Ford is kind of like the fundamental founding text of like modern Luciferianism, and like even he says like it is not a religion. This is a philosophy. These are just, it's a set of guiding principles and practices to lead your life. It's your path. Do with it what you will. This is not an orthodox religion.
The secret, but for Lucifer.
Oh God.
That's not
cursed.
what it is at all. That's a cursed image I just put out into the world right there. It's a set of guiding principles that somebody can kind of use to help lead their life. So would you be willing to walk me through what those principles are, kind of what they mean, and how you interpret them as somebody who's following those principles?
Absolutely, yeah. I have a page bookmarked here to take it straight from the horse's mouth. Because,
You'll love to see it.
What better source
than the source?
You know. So in the Bible of the Adversary, at the very beginning, Michael Ford kind of lays out what he calls the 11 Luciferian points of power. And these are kind of like the foundational principles as a whole. So in order, they are: 1, Lucifer represents the light of intellect, wisdom, and power unique to the individual, with the courage to ascend to this responsibility. 2nd, the symbol of the Adversary is that of the self-liberator and spiritual rebel who inspires self-evolution. 3rd, Lucifer represents the balanced torchbearer of Venus, the light bringer as the morning star, and the night bringer as the evening star. 4th, the Adversary symbolizes the spark of consciousness which questions everything, manifesting the individualistic path with accountability only to oneself. 5th, the fall of Lucifer in popular lore symbolizes the liberation of the mind from the slave mentality of right-hand path religions, and the courage to explore and master the darkness within oneself. One may not offer illumination of the morning star without the wisdom of the darkness within yourself. 6th, the Adversary represents rebellion with purpose, that being wisdom, strength, and power. 7th, Lucifer represents the courage and fortitude to acquire healthy self-love, leading to the responsibility of honoring your temple of mind, body, and spirit. 8th, to become your own god, you must have the wisdom and strength to govern and guide your life as if your mind is to survive beyond this mortal body. 9th, indulgence with restraint, love for the deserving, and disdain for those undeserving. 10th, Lucifer represents the insight that every act, no matter if perceived as selfless, is, at core, a selfish act. Even if helping others is your passion, your brain still rewards you with chemicals triggered by that very act. Therefore, many consider that doing good deeds in society brings you closer to God. Recognize that we are all selfish. Then see this fact in yourself and accept this. With this knowledge, make choices that would benefit not only yourself, but your loved ones when possible. And 11th, to become a god is to fully understand that you possess the power to create and sustain your path in life and illuminate the light of self-determined potential.
It seems pretty straightforward. I like number 6, which was rebellion. It was rebellion with purpose. You're not just doing it to just fucking do it. You're doing it to gain something.
We're not
yourself.
The edgy teens in the abandoned building in the forest, just doing stuff to be creepy.
You're doing it to gain more wisdom and power and strength for yourself to improve yourself, and that's why you perform this act of rebellion.
Yes.
I like that one a lot. That one stuck with me pretty good. But all of them make sense. Number 10 about selfishness is also very, very accurate, because even the person who does all the selfless acts in the world is still getting something out of it, even if it's not like monetary or physical value. You're getting emotional value out of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So these are basically the principles that Luciferians live by, essentially.
Yes.
Okay. So when you read through these, is there anything in here that you kind of feel needs more explanation? I think it's pretty straightforward, but how would you kind of like summarize all of this personally?
I mean, like you, I see it as pretty straightforward, but I mean, that's because, I live it every day. But I think the hardest thing about like trying to explain it to people is just most people's sheer unwillingness to even have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could try to boil it down to like the simplest possible form to get to somebody in as few words as possible without them trying to immediately dismiss it, would just be something akin to like hold on. The cat is pitching a fit. I'm sure that's gonna potentially show up in the audio. I need
It's okay. We like cats. We like cats here on Sam vs. Sam. Cats are welcome on Sam vs. Sam.
Yes,
Always
but
welcome.
The problem with this cat is once he starts throwing a fit, he doesn't stop.
It's like Pringles. It's like once you pop, the fun don't stop. Okay, so where were we? I don't.
I was about to ask the same question.
No, you were getting ready to like, if I could boil it down to a simple sentiment for people who kind of don't get it, I think is where we're at.
Yeah, we were trying to just summarize the 11 points in like as concise a manner as possible.
Right.
And I would say just like the most basic gist of like Luciferianism and even Satanism in general is just bow to no one else but yourself. You are your own boss. Don't take veiled threats from others. Live life the way you want to.
So this entire time, Taco Bell's Live Moss has been really
a secret satanic campaign. You heard it here, Fox News.
I'd honestly believe it if my experience with Taco Bell in the past has been anything to be believed. I could believe that. So
the secret's in the sauce.
The secret's in the sauce. Oh my god.
You're welcome.
I love it. I love it. I'm not entirely sure what to ask, because it seems like pretty straightforward of a thing. But if is there something that like you want to talk about when it comes to Luciferianism that I have not asked, or that you want people to know about it?
That in itself is a good question, because like on the surface, it is very simple. It's a very simple philosophy and spiritual path to follow. And I mean, obviously there's a ton more nuance to it, and there, we have, different magical practices and whatnot associated with Luciferianism that, that aid those 11 points that we were talking about, to better yourself and whatnot. But behind all the nuance, those 11 principles are still guiding everything that comes after that. Like, you could buy all of the books you want, and the 11 points of power are still going to apply throughout all of it. So to find something that I would want to stress beyond that is... I wouldn't say it's not something that I don't want to do, but it's just like there are things that people would need to learn for themselves. Because traditions like Satanism, Luciferianism, occult practices in general are still potent today because they kept their secrets. Like the word occult itself means hidden, or to be revealed, hidden knowledge. So, like, is there more that I would like to tell? Absolutely. But that would kind of dispel the whole purpose of bettering yourself and progressing through and discovering those truths for yourself.
Sure. So, would it be too much to ask, like, for an example or two of, like, something that you do personally that works for yourself, that help you kind of capture these principles in your own life?
I mean, it obviously won't be for everyone, but
right.
But then again, right. Luciferianism is not for everyone.
That's very true. Because I think it's, before you say, I think it's important to kind of hammer home, and literally what you just said. It's a journey that you have to go on yourself to find what it means to you. So it's highly personalized.
Oh yes.
You have those 11 points, and then you kind of branch off from there. So what you're about to say is for you specifically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So for me, like, I find great benefit in working regularly with demons from the Goetia. And the Goetia is one of the more well-known grimoires. It's part of a work known as the Lesser Key of Solomon the King, which is a grimoire that is alleged to have been written by King Solomon, but factually, probably not. But nonetheless, whoever did write the grimoire supplied us with copious amounts of information on different demons, their attributes, what skills they can help teach you, what benefits they can bring to you, the sigils for using to work with them and whatnot. And so if I'm at a point in life where I'm not sure what I need to do, or if I'm struggling with actualizing my will and bringing about the change I want, I don't hesitate at all to call upon those spirits and ask for their guidance.
Okay. And again, your mileage may vary.
Your mileage may vary.
But that is what works for Zach, and that is awesome. I want to ask this question too, because obviously we live in a society and you know, pop culture and, you know, the internet and everything is so like such a big part of like a lot of people's lives. We obviously have seen in pop culture the misrepresentations of Luciferianism, Satanism, those types of things. Have you ever seen in pop culture something that kind of accurately depicts it as what it is, or is it kind of just like we're rocking with the social media stuff? That's the representation. That's what the people are doing. Like, what have you seen out there that makes you go like, yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, in terms of like shows I personally have seen, I have yet to find a suitable example of something I could point to and go, I approve.
Sure.
Because like even American Horror Story, which I love as a series.
Yes,
I love it.
I do as well.
But
I've been enjoying the current season quite
they
well.
just fucking just bolted in the opposite direction and just went with what everyone knew.
Yeah.
And disappointed me. Because like when Coven was a thing, I was like, ooh, maybe we'll actually get to see. No.
Well, because again, and it kind of ties back to what we were talking about closer to the beginning of this, where it was like, it's very easy to take this and push it as, ooh, scary, you know, and ooh, evil. But, and I think it's like I said, it's the easy button for people to come up with a villain, you know. And so I'm not surprised by that answer. I guess is how, but I did want to ask it just to see, you know,
the inevitable disappointment.
Wah, wah. So it's mostly people who practice, you know, being vocal on, you know, Twitter. It's like I said, like Satanism has a great Twitter game. Like it's like, you know.
Yeah, it really does mainly come down to us as practitioners to try and make people aware of what it's really like. Mm-hmm. Because the church isn't doing anybody any favors. Popular media is absolutely not doing anyone any favors, and they show no sign of really trying to. Yeah. So we have to be on our A game at all times to, you know, try and let people know, you know, like, hey, we're not actually running some secret cabal. Like, I think I would know about this secret cabal I'm supposedly involved with. Yeah. I don't think I'd be in this apartment.
if I was part of a secret cabal, do you think I'd be here right now? I'd be with the cabal doing cabal shit.
I was promised a new world order, and all I got was this lapel pin.
I was gonna mention,
worst trade ever.
You are looking very snazzy, and is the chain you're wearing, the necklace you're wearing, is that the symbol for Luciferianism? What is that?
This is actually the sigil of Lucifer. Okay. So lots of spirits and demons will have their own what's called a sigil, mm-hmm. and a sigil is basically, in simplest terms, it's kind of like their signature, and it's a symbol that you can use in ritual to call that entity forward.
Okay.
So cool. I tend to wear the sigil of Lucifer more than I would an inverted pentagram, Because the inverted pentagram draws lots of unwanted and violent attention, whereas the sigil of Lucifer, next to nobody knows. So,
because that was the other question I was going to ask, is because I think the inverted pentagram, that's what people, when you say, oh, Satanism, Luciferianism, you say these things, like people think about that pentagram, and it's like you said, what do you mean by unwanted attention?
Well, to be perfectly frank, we live in the Bible Belt, and there have been people who have drawn weapons on me just for wearing those symbols.
Yep. God bless the Midwest. As it were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it's great being a Luciferian in the Bible Belt.
Good luck trying to do literally anything in the Bible Belt, not just Luciferianism.
I mean, that's a fair point.
I do understand the why that would potentially be reacted to a little bit more extremely in that area that we are both from. So I suppose we could begin to wrap this up. Do you have anything that you would like to say about this whole situation before we say goodbye? Anything? Because I remember because last time we talked about H.P. Lovecraft, and we forgot to talk about a couple of things that I just didn't even think about. So I want to send, which because we talked about so much stuff that was all very interesting. More interesting stuff just didn't come to my head that I didn't know about and I knew to ask about, but I just didn't, because like we talked about all this other cool stuff. So do you as my ambassador of Spoop have anything specific you'd like to add before we call it quits for this here spooky month episode?
I mean, I would just like to put out there that, like, if there's anyone out there that like has any interest in like studying, things of an occult nature, or you're like specifically interested in learning more about Lucifer and what things are and aren't like actually attributed with him, don't be afraid to go get a couple books and read for yourself. It's something that, like, even when I was younger, I was always fascinated with other religions, but I was always scared to look into it because of repercussions from my super religious father and from, other people in the church. But don't let those people's opinions hold you back from discovering something that will fundamentally change your life for the better. Don't be afraid to go online. Even Amazon has most of the books that I have in my collection. You can find what you need. It's out there and it's at your fingertips. Just tip your toes in the water. If I wanted to recommend just one book for anyone to look into to get started, it would be what I said earlier. That would be the Bible of the Adversary by Michael Ford. It is a fantastic book. Michael Ford has written a ton of other books, but I would recommend just starting here if you're specifically interested in Luciferianism or Satanism, to really learn what it's all about.
And I'm looking at Amazon right now. There's a paperback edition of this book on Amazon for $26.99. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it is free with Kindle Unlimited. So why not?
There it is. It's free. With certain restrictions.
With certain restrictions. Or $10 to buy on Kindle if you don't have Kindle Unlimited. So it's very accessible. It appears to be very accessible.
You can also find a lot of great resources just at luciferianapotheca.com, which is like Michael Ford's like personal website that he has set up for books and supplies and candles and incense and everything you would ever need for your practice is all in one unique place. I have spent a load of money there. I'm not sponsored, but you should go check them out.
And I will put a link to that in the description so that you have an easy way to get there if you so choose. But yeah, that's awesome. And again, my ambassador of Spoop, Zach, thank you again for joining me on this here spooky month to again demystify things that people could know more about. I very much appreciate it, as always.
Well, I thank you for having me back again, and I guess I'll see you in 365 days.
Absolutely. I might consider a provisional license to come on and talk about it before then, but definitely for sure, next spooky month we will have you back for another thing. At the very least.
At the very least. Well, I look forward to that.
Thank you. What you can do is if we gave you the resources to look into Luciferianism, but what you also could do is you could do the good YouTube things. You can like, comment, and subscribe to let us know that we're doing a great job, and hit the bell notification if you want to know when more videos come out on the channel. YouTube will tell you, as always. And I just would like to remind you to have a great life. Thank you very much.
The end. And scene.